On your Thursday episode of Locked On Raptors, the Toronto Raptors lose a heartbreaker they had ample opportunity to win, but man, what a game.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors. It is Thursday, February the 26th, and I am your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Raptors for so very long on various platforms. You can find all my work over on Blue Sky. You can find the show on Instagram. You can join us in the Locked On Raptors Discord server as well. Link in the description of the podcast. 100% free to join as always. And today's show is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Have your cake and drink it too. Birthday cake flavor is back. No fork needed. Vanilla-y, cakey flavor, baby. Caffeinated kick and no sugar. It's party time over to order now at 5hourenergy.com or Amazon. And we're off and running here on your Thursday edition of the show, talking about a gut-wrenching 110-107 loss to the San Antonio Spurs. Brandon Ingram, an attempted three to tie the game at the buzzer after a beautiful inbound set him loose on the weak side, and he hits the side of the backboard. Raptors lose and blow a 12-point fourth quarter lead. They were up by as many as 15 with like 13 minutes left to go in this game. And yeah, it's not ideal to see the Raptors lose a game like this, to have this be their fifth fourth quarter blown lead of 10 or more points leading to a loss. That one's from our pal Keeks. It's not what you want, but that's honestly not my big takeaway from this game. We will get into what went wrong in the fourth quarter. We've got the good, the bad, the coming up later on, but I don't know. Maybe I just want to get a little sentimental off the top first. And I also just want to talk about, why this game was kind of the type of game the Raptors need ultimately. Personally, just before we dive into the nuts and bolts of it, I don't get sentimental enough about my job, I don't think, and how cool it is. But getting to see Wemby in person for the first time last night was one of those times where I kind of sit and think, damn, this job's pretty cool. And I'm very appreciative of anyone who watches or listens to kind of make it a reality that I, in fact, have that job. Wemby's amazing. He's just like something else. And you watch it on TV, and it's one thing, and then you see him in person, you just see like the staggering height and length and the way he covers ground on the floor. And, similar to how I felt when the Raptors lost to LeBron for all those years, I don't think there's really any shame in losing to Victor Wembanyama in any real way, shape, or form, because that guy is just a total game breaker. He changes the way basketball is perceived and has been perceived for the majority of my lifetime. And it's pretty cool to watch a dude like that kind of, affect a game in which he was kind of bad and still was so obviously the best player on the floor, the most impactful player on the floor. Although not to be outdone, Scottie Barnes was pretty damn good too, especially in the defensive end. And I do think for me, watching Scottie and Wemby in a showcase of two of the best defensive players alive, trading blows, guarding each other down the stretch, like really special thing to behold. And emotion. I know Matt Ishbia, owner of the Suns, is already offering money for stars to do the dunk contest next year. If you'd also like to put up some money for Scottie Barnes and Wemby to play a game of horse, but instead of shooting baskets, they're just kind of one-upping each other with defensive plays. Maybe you get a poor local Suns guard like, I don't know, Colin Gillespie to just like be the guinea pig for all kinds of mad defensive experiments by Barnes and Wemby back and forth. I'd watch that all day long. It might be just my new favorite sport. It was amazing. The sequence where Scottie Barnes rips the ball clean from De'Aaron Fox on a drive and does so just so nastily, kind of shakes him off with the arm when Fox is trying to fight to get the ball back. And then he throws it up to Brandon Ingram. He finds Jakob Poeltl. Poeltl seems like he's got a clear lane for a reverse layup, and Wemby just goes up and swallows it with his two hands. I mean, incredible, man. It's just like one of those games where the result kind of is irrelevant by the end, and you're just kind of thrilled to be watching such cool high-level basketball in unfolding before your eyes. And look, the Raptors lost this game, and we'll get into the reasons why they lost, but I think there's a lot of really encouraging stuff to take from this as well. In particular, watching Scottie and Collin Murray-Boyles test their mettle against Wemby, with Murray-Boyles getting the start, which, by the way, I thought was the right call. I think there was maybe some sort of consternation of, you're going to use the 7-footer against the enormous guy. I think it's pretty clear that the best way to try to, limit Wemby, if that is a thing you can do, which the Raptors, by the way, did last night. He shot 3 of 12. They did as damn good a job as you can do on him with their defense on him. His defense, on the other hand, my God, just like completely warped everything the Raptors were trying to do. We'll get to that. But the way Murray-Boyles kind of fits the bill as like a short, stocky, thick, strong guy who can kind of punch up a little bit, get into the chest and the guts of Wemby when he's guarding him. Like, it worked. He was awesome. He was a revelation guarding Wemby in this game. And I think it continues to kind of hammer home that this Scottie CMB pairing the Raptors have, it's something, man. Like, they are really dynamic on the defensive end, and the numbers are coming around on the offensive end for them too. Clean the Glass now has them as like 113 offensive rating, which is an uptick from where they were not so long ago. And they have 104.5 defensive rating in all minutes with Scottie and CMB together on the floor. That's absurd. That is better than the Oklahoma City Thunder this season with those two guys on the floor. And that is not a small sample. It's a lot of minutes, a lot of possessions, and they are just so good, even against the very best players like they were last night. And, if you're thinking about the future of this team, like, there was an interesting comment that Darko had after the game last night where he was asked about sort of stylistic diversity around the league and how he thinks the league's in a great place and sort of so many teams are playing different ways because they're built around certain players. That's really the joy of basketball is, having teams that kind of have to play differently because their team build is necessitated around the guys they're building around. And I mean, there's all kinds of fun stuff you can do with Scottie and Collin Murray-Boyles doing what they're doing on the defensive end, presumably for the next 5 years at least. Like, the possibilities are really, really tantalizing. Maybe the roster's not perfectly conducive to optimizing them right now, but you got lots of time for that too. And I think that was just like a really, really cool thing to behold, the way they held Wemby in check. It's not an easy thing to do. He's, a top 3 MVP candidate for a reason. Look, the Raptors, you got to start holding on to leads better late, right? And again, it's their 5th loss of a 10-point plus lead for a loss this season. That's not great. I do think maybe we kind of over-index on that specific number and kind of lose the fact that they're 19-11 in clutch games this season. Like, they have, in fact, performed well. They're coming off of a fourth quarter in which they were, in fact, incredible just the night before. The fourth quarter collapses, particularly this one and the one against the Magic about a month back. Like, those are the two that really sting, I think. But all told, these are the types of games you need to play. Like, this is how you learn. And yeah, it sucks that they don't have that sort of closing edge right now. We'll get into some of the issues with the offense. It's been a recurring problem. It was on Tuesday night. It was again last night. But I do think these are the kinds of games that teams have to play when they're trying to be serious. And I think it's, you can kind of feel upset about it, wallow in it as it happens. But I think the team is going to be better for a game like this. This is just how this works. This is how player development happens. This is how guys improve. This is why you want to be competitive and play in real games against real teams and not just be doing the tank derby every year, right? Like, this is how your players improve and kind of figure out where they got to get to and the level that they got to hit. And the Raptors hit that level for a good chunk of this game. And the fact that Wemby and the Spurs punched back their punch with just a little bit more juice, like, that's going to happen. Wemby is incredible. He's probably going to be the best player in the world for the better part of the next 10 years, health provided. These things happen. I was thinking a lot about a certain game from the 2013-14 season on the way home from this game last night. You may remember, maybe you were a fan back in 2014, and so I'll regale you of the tale. And if you are, you probably know where I'm going with this. Raptors Thunder, March 21st, 2014. For the uninitiated, this was like peak of his powers MVP Kevin Durant, like 2 months out from winning his MVP. He was absolutely on one that season. The Thunder were 51-18 coming into town. They were an amazing team. The Raptors, 37-30 in the midst of their post-Rudy Gay trade, sort of rise up the standings where everything was fun. And, they were playing in a similarly depressed Eastern Conference where there weren't a whole lot of great tests for exactly how good they were throughout that season. And so the Western Conference heavies were kind of those big tests. And the Thunder come into town in late March, and they play an absolute banger of a game against the Raptors. Russell Westbrook goes out with an early injury. Kevin Durant scores 51 in the game. The Raptors kind of hang in. It was not like the Raptors didn't blow a fourth quarter lead. They actually kind of kept striking back after KD kept putting the Thunder up by a possession or two throughout the closing stretches of the game. They force overtime. Kyle Lowry hits a big three at the end of the first overtime to tie things up again, to send it to overtime number 2. And in that frame, the Raptors take a 5-point lead, and they have a 5-point lead with 20 seconds left on the clock. And all kinds of crazy stuff happens at the end of this game. They give up a 3 to Derek Fisher. Shout out Derek Fisher, making an appearance on the podcast. Cut it to 2. Turn it over right away after getting the inbound. They get a stop on that, by the way, somehow. And John Salmons, after turning it over, gets fouled. He goes to the line, misses both free throws. So it's 118-116. And guess what happens? Kevin Durant bangs a 3, and they win the game. They come back from down 5 with like 15 seconds left to win. And it was dejecting, but it was also one of the first games where you really felt like, oh, like this Kyle DeMar, Jonas Raptors team maybe has some juice. And I felt that for the most part coming out of the game last night against the Spurs. Sucked in the moment to lose the lead. We'll get into the rotation decisions that kind of cost them, and whether or not they were justified or not. But, they're going to be better. And look, the Raptors are going to suffer crippling losses after this too, right? Like, this is what happens. The Raptors had this game against the Thunder, then they went and played 7 against the Nets and lost in truly heartbreaking fashion at the end, and they got swept the next year. None of this stuff is linear. This is not an instant gratification game, but games like this against the very best teams, they're necessary. And unless you have a guy like Wemby who kind of speed runs you to the top of the league, like these are the sort of lumps you got to take as a team that's just trying to become more serious. And I think being good, this is why I've always said being good begets getting better, because you test yourself against good teams and you sort of improve upon that. That is the single best way to develop as players. And the Raptors are going to be better for this one. Sucks they lost it. We'll get into the reasons why in just a second here, but all told, man, what a game, what a trial by fire. And Wemby is just from another planet. He's just unbelievable, man. We're going to come back and get into, again, the fourth quarter issues, the rotation decisions that cost the Raptors, and the offense continuing to just not do things very well down the stretch. We'll do that in just 1 second. Today's show is brought to you by friends over at 5 Hour Energy. Welcome to the 5 Hour Energy Flavor Draft with 18 different flavors to choose from, including new options like Confetti Craze, Fruity Rainbow, or Cotton Candy. There's something for everyone. The board is set. The flavors are ready. And I've got my number 1 pick loaded up for the 5 Hour Energy Flavor Draft. And that pick is, drumroll please, peach mango, baby. I am a big fan of the more sort of fruity style persuasions that you get from 5 Hour Energy, and peach mango right up there. Berry would be a very close second pick. Berry is the one I used to have all the time when I was pulling all-nighters in school, writing papers before they were due. Got to check it out. That little afternoon caffeine burst from a 5 Hour Energy, without the sugar, without the sort of crash, without the need to go and like make a pot of coffee in the middle of the afternoon. It's a very, very nice thing. And right now you can get that 5 Hour Energy shot to give you that boost with 0 sugar and all kinds of fun innovations and flavors. Find your new favorite flavor of 5 Hour Energy. Shots available online at 5hourenergy.com or Amazon. Go check it out. Today's show is also brought to you by friends over at Game Time. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena, especially when Victor Wembanyama is playing in said NBA arena. But if he's not playing and other cool NBA players are, you can also go get tickets for those games. And the Toronto Raptors have plenty of home games coming up on the slate. And if you want to go to one of those to catch the Raptors as they head into the postseason run, you can go and check out Game Time to get the tickets in a most simple and sort of fan-friendly way you can possibly imagine. All in pricing. That's my favorite thing. You know exactly what you're going to pay up front. There's no surprise fees at the back end. That's a huge deal. And if you've never been to a venue before, the view from your seat is a really big deal as well. You know exactly what the sight lines are going to be. You know exactly what sort of old pillars you're not going to be sitting behind, because you're not choosing the seats that are behind old pillars. I'm thinking of you, Fenway Park. Get rid of the pillars, please. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. And remember, it's gametime.co, not gametime.com. Gametime.co. Go check it out. All right, back at it here. Before we dive into the fourth quarter woes for your Toronto Raptors, just a quick reminder, the Locked On Raptors Everydayer Club is available for you to sign up for right now. Link in the description of the podcast. $5 a month, $50 for the year. So a little bit of a discount on the monthly basis to go get ad-free episodes of the show every single day into your feed on your favorite podcast app. You're going to change apps, anything like that. It's a great thing. And you get that ad-free, uninterrupted show every single day. This also includes the postcasts from Zulfi and Dwayne. They had a good one last night. Go check that out as well. So yeah, sign on up. There's also the Locked On Discord, bonus content, lots of reasons to sign up. Link in the description of the podcast. Go find that landing page. Okay, let's get to what went wrong in the fourth quarter. And I guess we can start with the lineup decision at the start of the fourth, where the Raptors had the 12-point lead coming in. And I was perplexed at the time, and still I'm a little perplexed. And I think you can kind of poke some holes in the logic and reasoning a little bit. That Darko explained after the game. But if you didn't catch the game, if you didn't catch the rotation pattern, first couple minutes of the fourth quarter, the Raptors roll out there with no Brandon Ingram, no Emmanuel Quickly, no Scottie Barnes, and I believe Poeltl was also sitting as well. And so you had RJ Barrett, Collin Murray-Boyles, and a few bench guys out there. And it just was not enough against the Victor Wembanyama-led lineup that the Spurs have thrown out there. I think Dylan Harper was on the floor as well. He had an incredible game, both ends of the floor. Man, that guy's good. And so, yeah, you know, the explanation from Darko after the game made some sense. The reason there was no Scottie or Ingram to start the quarter was Ingram played the entire third quarter. You got to sit him at some point, and so he's sad he doesn't ever play the start of fourth quarters because he usually plays the entire third. Scottie would normally be in there to start the fourth, but he was dealing with that leg injury he picked up against the Thunder. And apparently it was like his call to try to reserve his minutes as best as possible. And I guess the thinking was, hey, we got a 12-point lead. If we can steal a couple minutes here and sort of reserve Scottie for the end of the game, playing on what Darko classified as on one leg, they're going to try to do that. And it didn't work. Obviously, the Spurs come out, quick 7-0 run, call a timeout. They got to get Scottie back in there. And yeah, what wasn't the ideal start to the quarter. I totally understand the Scottie reasoning. My issue was he also didn't have Emmanuel Quickly on the floor. And I thought maybe that would have been, at least to have him. He was kind of grooving. He had a really good offensive night. Threes were falling. He was getting into the teeth of the defense pretty well, as was the case with most of the Raptors. When they came into the teeth of the defense, they realized, oh, those teeth are enormous and 7'5" and have arms for days. So we're going to make a business decision and either put up a floater or get the hell out of there. A whole lot of never mind moments from the Raptors last night on their drives, as is the case when you're up against Wemby. But I thought IQ probably should have been on the floor if you weren't going to have either Ingram or Barnes. For me, there was a bigger rotation error and sort of lineup decision that I think cost them more. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on when we get to the bad, in the good, the bad, and the But obviously the other thing beyond the rotation stuff was just the offense just wasn't cutting it again. And they got to have a little bit more offensive ingenuity, I think, in these situations. And it was kind of frustrating because I thought for the most part of this game, the Raptors were kind of diversifying the way they play offense a little bit. They were a little bit more pick and roll heavy in the first three quarters than they typically are, kind of piggybacking of what I talked about yesterday on the show. I think there's room for them to run more pick and roll. Having Jakob Poeltl back and playing like he played last night allows them to do that more often. And I thought in the second and third quarters in particular, the Raptors ran 20 pick and rolls in those two quarters. They typically run 29.5 on a nightly average. And so well ahead of their sort of typical pace in those middle quarters. And they didn't score amazingly on them or anything like that. But I do think the looks the Raptors were getting, where they were kind of living in the mid-range because they had to, because Wemby was just there doing everything at the rim as he does. But I thought the looks they were getting in the mid-range, whether it was Ingram stepping into a midi or Shead getting to that sort of 10-foot floater that was going down pretty well for him, or Quickly getting to his floater, those were all just basic pick and roll without a pass even. Just and the Raptors had a pretty low assist rate in this game by their standards because they kind of had to simplify things. And it was, all right, set a screen, maybe get a switch, try to occupy Wemby with a roller and just get a mid-range look up where he's not bearing down on you. And that largely worked. And maybe it was some unsustainable shooting. I think the Raptors are a team that can kind of hang and sort of make it work on a single night basis with their mid-range shooting because they have good mid-range shooters, Ingram in particular, and it was going for him early on. But I thought in the fourth quarter, they only ran 3 pick and rolls, first of all. They totally went away from pick and roll down the stretch, and they went to the sort of thing we've kind of belabored on this show plenty of times. Let's run all this off-ball stuff and be stagnant and not really move for 12 seconds, trying to get the ball to Ingram in the post. and then he goes to work from there. And I thought the Raptors in post-up situations in this game, it's harder to sort of defy Wemby in that way, right? Because if you're not involving him in the action, he's just free to roam and do whatever the hell he wants. And his timing is so good on top of him just being everywhere all the time that he's just kind of lurking in the shadows. And he's not really hidden. He's there. He's enormous. He's just waiting. And on those post-ups, I thought, it's a little bit harder to kind of pull him out of position. Whereas when they were running more pick and roll early in the game, like they had him coming out to the level of the screen. They had him having to track back to the roller and drop deep so the mid-range guy could get it off over their dude and not have Wemby draped all over them trying to block the shot. Scottie getting blocked by Wemby from 3, by the way. That was some phenomenal stuff. My God, he's so good. But yeah, just thought the offense kind of got a little bit more stilted, as it's been the case in fourth quarters. And I asked Darko after the game, Yak playing like he played last night and having him involved. And we did see some moments of solid offense in the final couple minutes, largely through Brandon Ingram, Poeltl pick and roll. That was, not, they didn't do it nearly enough. Obviously they could have tapped into it some more, but I asked Darko if having Poeltl playing like he played last night, which we'll talk about a little bit more in depth in a second, like, can that allow them to diversify a little bit more in late game situations? And, Darko didn't really commit one way or another, but he did say, like, yeah, like having Poeltl, his screening, all that stuff, it does give them more options. The push shot for him is such a nice release valve. Wasn't going for him last night. He was only 5 of 11 from the field, but like once he gets the sort of touch and flow back, like we know that shot goes in at a high clip. And so, I do think they have some tools to kind of use that they've yet to really bust out. They're still kind of in the package, but they just didn't use them enough in this game down the stretch. And, it's been the same old story of like, force feeding Ingram, chewing clock while they set that up, and the Spurs with their help defense and like their one-man help defense in Wemby. It's just a hard thing to sort of have that be the lifeblood of your offense. And so, yeah, didn't love it. I thought, we'll get into it as well. Their best moments came when they had 2 guards on the floor, and I thought maybe the closing decision wasn't right to have RJ in over Jamal Shead. I'll expand on that in a little bit in just a second, and we'll also get into Jakob Poeltl looking damn good. We'll do that coming up to close things out as we get to the good, the bad, and the as we always do here to close out the show. Just one sec. Today's show is brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you got to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on, you need the right hire. This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat line that says it all. In the minute I'll be talking to you here, companies like yours will make 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show can get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves over at Indeed.com/podcast right now. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast. Support our show by saying you heard about it here on this show. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? Well, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs, baby. Wrapping things up here with the good, the bad, and the That's how we wrap up every single episode of this your podcast on the heels of Toronto Raptors basketball game. Thing I like that thing that's got me a little intrigued from the latest Toronto Raptors hoops. I did it, sort of, not really. Thing I liked, thing I didn't like, thing that's got me intrigued. The good, it was so good to see Jakob Poeltl play the game that he played. Obviously, he wasn't super efficient, 5 of 11 overall. He did go 5 of 5 from the free throw line, though. Love to see that. He was a plus 18 in his 28 minutes. He was just really, really effective out there. And just having him along with Collin Murray-Boyles and Scottie Barnes as kind of just like a handful of dudes to throw at Wemby. Really, really great. I think Poeltl also just kind of dominated Luke Cornett in their minutes against one another, too. It was really, really good stuff. And the defense, I thought, was like the clear thing that stood out. He was just super mobile, blocking shots. He had 3 blocks in this game, looked totally sort of upright and, not labored by the back stuff. Really great to see. First time in a while we've seen that. And on offense, like I said, didn't quite finish the way you'd want, but I thought the process was really good. And I thought he opened up a lot for the Raptors ball handlers in this one with his screening, with his Gortat screening. He really, really pissed off Wemby at one point, doing the Gortat screen on a pick and roll. If you're not familiar with Gortat screens, think of Marcin Gortat, of course, back with the Wizards and the Suns and whatnot. You screen and then you roll and then you screen again and just kind of move a dude out of the way. And that was what Poeltl was doing with Wemby as best he could. He tried to keep Wemby's very, very long arms away from Toronto Raptors' prospective shot opportunities. And so, yeah, those floaters go down, a couple more of them do, and you're looking at a probably different game, and the Raptors probably win, frankly. But really great to see Poeltl looking spry and looking himself. Like, that's a really, really effective basketball player and a really nice player to have in the big man rotation for the Raptors, no doubt about it. Great to see. The bad, going back to the fourth quarter, you can sort of quibble with the first rotation decision at the start of the fourth. Again, went into the explanation from Darko. Some of it's fair. Some of it, maybe you should have played quickly. Maybe you could have adjusted Ingram's minutes in the third if you knew this was going to be a thing. Whatever. With the to me, like the bigger issue rotation wise in the fourth quarter was not closing with Jamal Shead. Like, just as rough as the early fourth quarter, I think maybe even more damaging, honestly, because I thought he just deserved to close. The Raptors in this game are a plus 13 in the minutes that Quickly and Shead shared the floor together. It was only like 7.5 minutes. Probably could have tapped into that a little bit more. Shead had a really good game. The floater was going. The threes were falling for him again. Great to see. And I just thought they get that duo would have given them the best chance to run effective late game offense. Get Quickly off the ball, use his gravity a little bit. I thought RJ also, after a really nice defensive game against the Thunder on Tuesday, had a really rough defensive game in this one, beat on back cuts, had really hard time with Stephon Castle. Just wasn't his best game overall. And I thought, this is nothing against RJ. It's like the Raptors have a good handful of guys they can close games with. I think they have at least 7 that I'd feel comfortable most nights, if they get the call to close games. And the Shead Quickly duo has just been really good. The numbers are fantastic on the whole on the season. And in this game, again, a plus 13 in 7 minutes with those two guys on the floor. And when your offense is gumming up, having both guys on the floor to give you a little bit of extra guard play and creation, that to me would have been the move. But alas, it did not happen. But that to me was the clear bad from this one, and a far worse decision from Darko than the sort of the Scottie minutes reservation management at the start of the fourth quarter. The is kind of just like a question to all of you out there. How are we feeling after these 2 games against top competition? I'll tell you how I'm feeling. Look, sure would have been nice to come away from these games against the Thunder and the Spurs with a split, considering the Thunder were missing some very important, excellent players and an MVP candidate and all that. And the Raptors kind of gave the Spurs an excellent punch and were up late and had every chance to close it out. But I do feel like, all told, more encouraging than not across the 2 games. Offensively, clearly they got to do some problem solving and they need to address some things. And hey, maybe these aren't things they can address until the summer, but at the very least, it's like important data they've gathered here to suggest, yes, in fact, they need to find ways to sort of increase the dynamism of the offense and the creation. But like, if they play like they did last night against teams that don't literally have Victor Wembanyama going on defense, like, they're going to start racking up some wins against some of these good teams they have coming up down the stretch. Like, it sucks they didn't win one of these for sure. And the issues closing games have been very real. And the offense is just this through line trouble spot that's kind of driving, everyone a little bit insane, I think. But these 2 games against 2 very good teams. Yeah, the Thunder, even without their best guys, are very, very good. And they're an incredible defensive team. Like, and the Raptors, again, like, had a hell of a fourth quarter against one of the best defenses, the best defense in the NBA, one of the best defenses we've quite literally ever seen. And then they had that sort of, after the initial run they gave up to start the fourth quarter, like, it was very much just like a back and forth game between the Raptors and Spurs. Like, the Raptors had their chances, obviously, the free throws late, the missed rebound on the Dylan Harper second free throw, which, by the way, was just like one of the longest free throw rebounds I feel like I've ever seen. It just like went directly to where Wemby was standing. He bats it off the backboard, loose ball. The Spurs come away with it. They still get some luck on the free throw end of things and sort of get their chances. And they had the opportunity to tie it with Ingram at the end and drew a hell of a play to get the ball to him. Sucks he missed it, but like, I'm trusting a Brandon Ingram quarter 3 more often than not, especially of late where he's been pretty red hot. And so, yeah, like, some things didn't go their way. I don't think it means they're pathetic losers because they keep on losing games like this. And I think, like I said off the top, it's only going to make them better over time. And I think, if you're kind of going off what we talked about earlier this week with Vivek on Tuesday, thinking about what's to come on the schedule and, barometers for success, you'd like to win some of these games, certainly at some point, and start notching victories. But I think you're kind of more on the success than a non-success end of things so far through these 2 games, if you're evaluating it that way, particularly because I thought they just played really damn well against the Spurs, and the Spurs are incredible. They had won 9 straight coming in. They might go win the whole damn thing this year. And yeah, losing to them by 3 is a gut punch, and it shouldn't have happened probably, but there's no shame in losing to a guy like that, I think, is kind of the prevailing takeaway here. And I feel encouraged about their performance against very good teams based on these last couple games in a way I might not have been a couple of days ago, even though they've gone 0-2. And if that makes me the toxic optimist, then whatever. That's fine. That's that's kind of my lot in life anyway. So no surprise here. We'll come back on Friday with our pal Joe Wolf on, most likely, to have our little check-in. Maybe we'll dig into some of the late game offense, how they can expand their horizons offensively to close games, some other good stuff with our pal Wolf. It's always insightful stuff with him, so look forward to that. In the meantime, go check out last night's postcast with Zolfi and Dwayne, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow. Follow, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend, all the good stuff. Join the Discord, link in the description of the podcast. Join the Everydayer Club, $5 a month, $50 for the year. Ad-free episodes every single day, also linked in the description of the podcast. And we'll talk to you very soon. Thanks so much for hanging. Bye-bye. Oh.